Tatiana, and I am here this year as a visitor professor, and then we'll be starting next year in the tenure track assistant professor role in the education department. And super excited to be here and get to know all of you.
I'm Chris Stanek, full-time lecturer, and I mostly do courses that have to do with the arts and education, but next year we'll be teaching the advanced methods courses as well.
Howard. I'm Howard Drossman. I've been teaching at CC for 23 years, but in the chemistry and environmental programs, and this year is my first year in education. I'm starting the teaching and research in environmental education program, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Thank you. Charlotte?
Hi, I'm Charlotte Mendoza, and this year I'm completing an appointment, a special appointment on being a professor of global teaching and learning. So I'll talk later about what that means. And so I know I'm seeing several of you so I look forward to that.
Thank you. Go ahead, Deb.
I am Deb Mortensen, and my primary role is advising all of our teacher education students, whether that's at the undergraduate level or one graduate program CC has as a Master of Arts in Teaching. So that's my primary role.
Thank you. Carrie Ann?
Hi, I'm Gary Ann. I'm a Master of Arts in Teaching staff assistant here in the department.
Resident
And
filmmaker.
caterer and
Videographer.
videographer.
Terry?
Hi, I'm Terry. I'm your ED 100 and 110 person, so nice to see everybody in the room. And the director of the teacher prep program for those of you that continue on and either obtain your licensure through an undergrad 9th semester means or through the MAT program.
Thank you, Terry.
I'm Yuna Ng. I work in the front desk area. I'm the chief inviter and party coordinator.
Yeah.
And those of you who don't know me, I'm Mike Tabor. I'm chair of the education department. I live upstairs. Okay, so just I know I can look at the list here, but let me just see a show of hands of people who are just here to get some more information about the education major. That's why you're here. Okay, that's both great and scary at the same time.
Yeah, it is.
And my colleagues understand. Okay, how many of you are here because you're mostly going, you haven't declared the major yet? Let me just put it that way.
But
Okay.
you're going to.
You're going to, you're 99% certain. So one thing you can do today, if you want, is make sure you take a form. I think they're still, we can get you some, they're out, so that you can begin filling out that information. And if you haven't decided on an advisor yet, do that sooner rather than later so that we're prepared for registration that's going to come up at the beginning of Block 7. Okay, because that's going to be important for you and for us to make sure that we're covering all bases there. How many of you are education minors that have declared? Okay, awesome. Depending on where you are in the minor program, I know some of you are going to be like graduating this year. Enjoy lunch. Those of you who are not graduating this year, there will be some changes forthcoming. So you're not graduating this year, right?
I graduated this summer.
Yeah, so we need to make just a point of information to remember. If you're not graduating this year in the minor, there are some changes forthcoming next block. So pay close attention to communications from this department about those changes so that you can meet with one of the faculty to talk about how you're going to fulfill finishing the minor with those pending changes. We're kind of in a transition period right now with the minor, and so we want to make sure that we cover your minor with those transitions. If you are not yet, how many of you have not declared the minor? I want you to hold off. You're not going to declare yet. I want you to declare after the changes have been through the faculty, which is the next block. So you'll declare at registration, okay? So just don't declare yet. That's an easy thing to remember as well. How many of you are graduating majors this year? I didn't think anybody in this group. Okay, good. So that's kind of covering most of the bases, I think. So a lot of what we're going to present to you, and I apologize for being kind of in rapid fire, but we've got a lot of bases to cover. So pay attention to the parts that you need to pay attention to. And then if you have any questions afterwards, seek out one of the faculty who will help answer those questions for you, okay? All right, so we did our introductions. We talked a little bit about changes forthcoming to the minors, so let's go ahead and talk about trees. Howard, you just took a bite. Sorry about that.
I took a bite.
Okay. Starting next fall, we have a new off-campus study program, but it's a Colorado College program. It's called the Teaching and Research in Environmental Education Program. And it has 4 courses involved in it. The first course, it's a practicum course that actually satisfies the requirements for ED 100 and ED 110 by giving 60 hours of teaching both in the outdoors and in the classroom. The second 2 courses are called Foundations of Environmental Education and Environmental Education. The Foundations of Environmental Education satisfies one of the 2 foundations courses in the education department. And the Environmental Education satisfies one of our advanced courses, so it gives you another 30 hours of teaching. So all in all in the program, you'll get at least 100 hours of teaching, both in the indoors and the outdoor classroom, and time to observe teachers and work in the field teaching students about environmental topics. The last course we're playing with a little bit right now. For those who are going into their junior or senior and have all the prereqs, you can start working on your senior paper in education as a research project up there, so you can sign up for it at ED 490. And for those who have no background in science at all, we're looking into the possibility of maybe even having an introductory level course that will possibly satisfy natural science requirements. But right now the way it is that 4th course will be an independent study class. That could be on anything you might be interested in. So if you're interested in the program, I bought a number of the brochures. We're taking applicants. We already have 13 applicants for 16 positions, although I'm sure we'll go down just a couple as people make their usual adjustments of whether they're going to study off campus. So we have about another 4 people are in the process of applying, so we're probably only about 8, maximum of 8 positions left that we'll even entertain before we put people on the waiting list for next year. But it'll be an ongoing program. If anybody's interested, please feel free to take one of the brochures. And I'll stay around if you have questions afterwards. All right, thanks, Howard. Let's go ahead, and since we're talking about study abroad, Chris, you want to talk a little bit about study abroad?
Sure, we have a handout that we have worked with Heather Brown diligently to try and make cohesive and comprehensible for you. Basically, the gist of it is, if you're going to be a minor or a major, the most courses you could get satisfied in a major or a minor is 1 foundations course and then a half a unit of practicum. Some of the programs don't fulfill either one of those categories, and some don't fulfill any. So really read carefully, meet with Heather first if you're debating, because she knows the study abroad options and she understands what our requirements are, and then you could meet with us to see where it fits. But heads up, if you plan to go abroad and want to do one of the education programs, know that you have 2 foundation units to get for your major, if you're a major, and one of those could be fulfilled by a study abroad course if you so choose. So if you're racking up all the foundations courses, when you go abroad, you might not have to worry about that, but you might look then at doing a practicum half unit. The practicum half units to do an internship that receives credit for that is pretty specific, because we want it to be at least 30 hours in one specific placement. Many practicum units are kind of a survey, and they look at lots of different places, observing in lots of different places. So we have pretty specific requirements if you need a half unit practicum fulfilled by your study abroad courses. So do look at that and explore with a little more depth before you sign up for courses if you're hoping that they'll count towards some of your major requirements. In terms of the practicum, can I go ahead and I'll say Howard's tree semester is the only study off-campus program that counts towards as many units for the major or minor. Other programs at the most are 1.5 units.
One added piece of value about CAEE portfolios, you want to just touch on that too, Howard?
As soon as I put Brett in,
I know,
go for it.
that's why I did it. Because I think it's outlined in the handout a little bit.
So the Colorado Alliance for Environmental Education is the state certifying body for environmental educators. And though it is just really a line on your resume, they have 2 levels of certification, one called a basic level and one a master level teachers. And you don't have to take coursework, but it's a lot easier when you go through the coursework to be able to submit a full portfolio that has 5 sections, including environmental literacy, assessment, planning, curriculum, ethics, and foundations of environmental ed, to the Colorado Alliance. As part of the TREE program, actually students are required to write a portfolio, but students who aren't taking classes and who have all that could feasibly do it, but it's a lot harder to do without a class.
All right, thank you, Howard. Okay, so I'm gonna just go back to practicum.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Chris.
So, Ed 100 and Ed 110 are, for the most part, required. And we have 2 full units of practicum. Note that Ed 100 and Ed 110 are both up 0.5. So in essence, it is 4.5 courses. We've changed that as we've heard from you that that's difficult to do. So next year, there's an offering of 213 in Block 5, which is a full unit practicum. So it includes 60 hours in the school as well as regular full-time block requirements, but it is in the structure of a full block as opposed to an extended format. We also have, Terry's doing Ed 100 over half block, which is always an option.
I think
And
the
we have a
biggest,
survey out right now to see if there is a need for another half unit practicum, if many of you are at 1.5 and still need another half unit. Terry's not going to be doing Ed, what is it?
201.
201, but if that's needed, respond to our survey because Mike will offer it as a half block.
I had, Yuna told me 7 so far have responded to her email. If you received that email and you were kind of counting on that other half unit as Ed 201, please respond to her email because I'm using that information as part of the proposal to the half block committee to offer the course. So I want to show the demand.
And youth
Okay.
empowerment will not be offered
Right.
next year because of my course load, so that's off the docket for a 0.5 option. There will be, and the ESL course that's normally offered over half block is going to be switched into a full block as well.
Right, but we don't have any guarantee that that course will be on the books for next year. So the only thing right now is Chris's block 5, which by the way is being proposed as writing intensive, which limits the seats to 12, and the potential for 201 and half block. So again, the importance of stressing that if you feel like you needed that 201 and you were kind of counting on that extra half unit, respond to Yuna's email so that she can capture that for me in my proposal for the course to be offered, okay? So that's important. Okay, so we covered practicum. Pass-fail policy and D grades, Chris, just quickly want to.
The only course in the major allowed to be taken pass-fail is at 100, where it's a mandatory pass-fail. If you have taken a course pass-fail in the major, see your advisor, you'll probably have to take an additional course in that category. So heads up as you're signing up for courses in the major, and if you receive a D or less, we will not count that course towards major requirements.
So see your advisor if you have any questions about that policy. Okay, so the next topic is international teaching opportunity. Sure.
Okay, I'll preface this by saying that as you're thinking of registering for courses next year, in Block 7 will be the Globalization of Education course. That is very popular. It is always with 25 students, and as it is for this year, with a wait list. So if you're interested in that, you need to appoint someone. But as far as international teaching goes, this applies to those of you who are interested in getting a teaching license while you were here. And Deb, I'm sure, is going to talk about how you go about doing that. At the elementary level, at the middle school level, at the high school level, at the K-12 level, whatever. If you do the teacher licensure program, and this is, you have to do that because you have to student teach at least the 2 blocks. It's a 4-block time for student teaching. 2 blocks you need to do here. And be wonderful at it. Because then you get to go as our ambassadors to, right now it's 15 countries where you have 2 options. One is you could go to the country that speaks English and then just join in and student teach further in whatever country that is. I'm talking about Ireland, England, Scotland, New Zealand, Australia, India. I think all of those are the ones that count at this point. Or if you want to go into and immerse yourself, as some folks have, an entirely different culture, which is true in some of those countries too. You can go to China, to Russia, to Greece, Italy, all sorts of places. First, the prerequisite is 2 blocks of student teaching here. The next part is 2 blocks there, wherever there is. if you're interested in that, you would need to, this would be in your senior year, you would need to come see me. My office is in Armstrong, as some of you know. But if you came to see me and you're even thinking about this, I would say, see me soon, because I'm on sabbatical in the fall. And what happens is if you want to do this and you're student teaching sometime next year, then we need to get materials off. We have a partnership with the University of Indiana in Bloomington. And through them, they organize homestays for you in the various countries. They organize the school placement, they organize the teacher, and the great part about this is in each of these countries, and I've met most of the people involved, there's a host country consultant, a well-known educator who will help you out and work out all these details. Some students really, the word might be pestered to go on our program, which we do have established in Kenya. But given current conditions, we are not about to send any of you on a country that's on the State Department warning list, which it is currently. I sat next to the gentleman from Kenya at a meeting of all the host country people this summer, and I said, I'm sorry, we actually have students who really wanted to go. He's like, I live in Western Kenya, there's no problem yet. But then I asked him if he came in and out of the Nairobi airport to get to the meeting we had in Indiana. Oh yes, and I said, well, the situation in Nairobi is not good. And he said, well, the problem is the bordering country, Somalia, and the jihadists who are coming in and just killing people. So until that all gets resolved, the program itself is looking at Tanzania as another possibility of Africa. But at this point, that hasn't been finalized. So if you're interested in any of this stuff and you're going to student teach next year, come see me before you leave in May so we can talk about how you go about doing it.
Thanks. Deb, do you want to talk a little bit about teacher licensure
Yes,
and IT program?
And I recognize a few faces, but just a quick show of hands. How many of you are interested in doing licensure, either as an undergraduate or maybe even as part of our NET program? Awesome. So if you are at least a sophomore, make sure that we talk relatively soon. We've had some changes in some of our, what we call our methods classes, and we want to make sure that you're on track to get all those coursework taken care of. So as a general rule, our undergraduates tend to do licensure in 4.5 years. It's a really tight squeeze to fit everything required for your bachelor's degree, which it could be education, or if you're planning on teaching math or English, then you're actually going to major in your discipline. But to try and do all those requirements plus student teach, which is a required 4-block commitment, is very difficult for most students. So most undergraduate licensure take advantage of a night semester program. So you graduate with your bachelor's degree and everything else for education or everything else for licensure in your 4 years. And then you come back for a 9th semester at a huge tuition cut, approximately like 1/10 of the cost of the regular CC tuition. And during those 4 blocks, that's when you student teach. And as Charlotte mentioned, you could do all 4 blocks here locally in Colorado Springs, or you could choose to do 2 blocks in Colorado Springs and 2 blocks international. So, but as I said, there's checklists. If you are a secondary, which would be anywhere middle school or high school, you're going to be majoring in whatever content you choose to teach. So that's science, English, math, social studies, or we also have K through 12 programs in art, music, and languages. So there's a checklist that we'll have to go over with those very specific content classes. If you're planning on teaching elementary, you can actually major in pretty much anything you want to. Education's a great one, but you could major in history or sociology, psychology, anything you want to teach elementary. But there is still a checklist, pretty easily fulfilled by the liberal arts curriculum, but we just want to make sure that you're on track to do those classes, as well as those methods classes. There are 3 methods classes that all of our teacher licensure students take. Next year, the first methods will be offered block 4 in the fall and block 5 in the spring. So that's something, again, if you were planning on licensure, something for you to really be thinking about as you plan to register for classes next year. So it'll always be offered in the summer as well. Your first methods will always be a summer option. So.
Thanks, Deb.
Yes.
So at this point, if there are any seniors, we pretty much covered some general information, and the last remaining topics really don't apply to any seniors. I'm going to go over next year's schedule of education course offerings. I'm going to use that to talk a little bit about some changes that have occurred to the major. And then we're going to talk about the research thesis project requirement for the major. Those are the remaining topics. So seniors, if you want, you can stay. I think it's senior. Oh, Emma, okay, we got two, so that's good. You're welcome to finish cleaning up the food, whatever it takes. Okay? All right, so I hope everybody grabbed a copy of the schedule next year. This is still draft. It's not absolutely final, but I'm 99% confident this is now final. So I wanted to use this to also highlight some big changes that are occurring to the major. Ultimately a derivative of that to the minor, which we'll let you know next block. But also, if you're thinking about the licensure pieces that Deb was talking about, there's changes that relate to that as well. So first of all, you can see how the schedule's laid out. We've already highlighted to you Block 5, ED 213, the practicum course for the major, which you would need, but also if you're doing teacher licensure, you would want to do that as well. It helps get you those hours. You can see Howard's tree semester is there as well. They kind of run in parallel. Is that okay, Howard? I thought, parallel visual would be okay.
And let me ask a color question for who can tell me the practicum category courses are all highlighted in one color? Yeah, where'd you find the key?
On the left-hand side.
Yeah. So as you're looking at the list that has all the boxes, you'll see, can I hand this real quickly? Woo, that one. You'll see that there are colors that correspond to each of these categories. So if you know you need a foundations course, what color are foundations courses? Look for a tan course to see what blocks you have as possibilities. Does that make sense? Practicum, look at the blue courses, and then you can go down the list to see when those courses are offered based on their color.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So if you also look under ED 478, behind the scenes, there's this kind of a hash thing. That's only if you're in the teacher prep program. The only two audiences there are master's students and people who are going to be doing the 9th semester. Eventually, they've already applied to the teacher prep program they're in. That's the advanced methods course. So that's the visual for that. Okay, so big changes. One of the big changes to the major is that we no longer have, or will have after this block, after the faculty pass it, a long list of ED for something methods courses to choose from. Okay, so next year there will only be one course methods option for majors. It's ED 477. As Deb hinted, that course will be offered 3 times a year every year. Once in the summer, it'll be essentially B block. Most of the students in there will be Master of Arts in Teaching students, but we could foresee majors or we could foresee teacher prep students in there. The second option is, can't remember who said it, but Block 4, I think it was Deb. Block 4 it's offered, and again in Block 5. So if you're studying abroad next year and you're gone in the fall, you can take it in the spring or the summer. So that's why we're doing it 3 times a year for majors. Okay? So that's the big change forthcoming for majors. Whether you're declared or not, that's the big change coming for you. Okay? Any questions on that right now?
Chris, I'm sorry. Is the 220 Youth Empowerment also off the books?
It
For
is
next
off
year.
Next year.
That's the number, yeah.
Who knows about following years? If I continue to teach in block 1
Okay.
and 2, we'll be on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Send out a revised. I know this year you had a handout and like the pre-rec there'll be another handout coming out with the revised schedule.
This is basically that form.
Okay.
If you picked it up, this is the new version of that. It should be accurate with prereqs. It should be accurate with the study abroad information. It should be accurate with the new courses that are pending approval. That's why they're red on here. But this morning, COI told me no issues. It should go through. So all of the courses should be on it, and this should be accurate. So Okay, perfect. Good question. Any others related to the schedule?
The other thing I didn't mention is the global class is counted towards critical perspectives. If you need to meet that requirement, one unit on critical perspectives. It's the only list of things.
Okay, good, thank you, sure. Oh, yes.
How do the like secondary supervisor, blah blah blah, whatever, how do those work?
They're for, if you're in the teacher licensure program and you're doing your student-teacher practicum, that's the supervisor will be assigned to you, depending on your content level and or grade level. So for example, you see the name up there, Buchanan.
Yeah.
Mark Buchanan is my new secondary social studies supervisor. So if you're secondary social studies student teaching, he'll be your supervisor. Good question. Okay. The other change to highlight, this applies to students who are moving through the major and looking at doing their research ED 490 next year. How many of you are at that stage now where you're going to be doing 490 next year? Good, so pay close attention. The rest of you pay attention to the information. But you can see the green block, green color coded blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4 opportunities, unless you're in tree, a 5th opportunity to do 490 research. We're changing the process for applying for that ED 490 research. Chris?
Did you say that that's equivalent to a thesis? When we say Ed 490 research, we mean that's kind of the thesis in education.
So I'm going to pass around the sort of guidelines for that. Even if you're not going to be taking 490 next year, you might want a piece of the information just because the whole major sort of guides you towards this moment, this thesis moment. Meaning one of the other big changes in the major is research methods. I'm looking at Allison because we talked about this in class. It's now going to be 2 blocks instead of 1. So this year is the only year in which it's 1 block. Next year and every year thereafter it's 2 blocks. And on the schedule, research methods, ED 260 is offered which blocks? 3 and 4. Okay. So I know of one instance where a person who was counting on it being 1 block and going abroad in the fall, that could cause an issue for you. So plan accordingly. Okay? Tina's got it one more time coming up in block 7. Is that right? All right. And I don't think it's full yet. Am I right? I don't think the course is full yet.
Not yet, no.
So if you are going abroad next fall and you're approved to go abroad next fall and you're a major, you've got to take it in block 7.
And
That's
I
your
highly
backup.
recommend people who are freshmen take it as a sophomore because there's a lot of other ed courses that have it as a prerequisite. So if you're contemplating being a major, really consider taking the Ed 260 course as a sophomore.
That's correct. All right, so that 260 course is required for our advanced research ED 490, which is why I sort of brought that up. So the way the process works, I'm not going to read this to you. You can read, so I'll let you read through it, but I'll highlight some very important things. In the this time junior year, and the year before you would take 490, you need to be thinking about and meeting with your advisor about your research project. Because due the first Wednesday of block 6 is your research proposal. It's an online submission. Guidelines are written in here. They're also in the Qualtrics online, so if you need to look at that, you're welcome to. You're basically cutting a Word document, pasting it into the online form, and submitting that. The faculty will meet during block 6 and discuss the proposals, and then we will sort of organize the proposals around a couple of things. One is to divide and conquer, so not all one person, Tina, has all research students. But also because it makes sense sometimes synergistically if there's research in certain areas. I'll just say in environmental ed, it might be good to have Howard oversee those research pieces. So we're going to also divide them that way. We will then let you know before the end of block 6 who your research advisor will be. So this is a little different than in the past where you might have directly chosen your research advisor. This case, we're actually going to be assigning your research advisor. so that when you go into registration of Block 7, you know which block you're going to plop yourself into. All of us have research advising next year, except Charlotte. She's on sabbatical, so she doesn't. I highly encourage you to do so. If you're already thinking about a research topic idea and you already know the faculty member's area of expertise, go talk to them and figure out how you're going to formulate that research proposal. Okay? That's one big change. The other big change is by the end of, well, the fourth Monday of Block 8, so basically the end of the semester, you need to submit a research prospectus. This is a flushed out, here's my question, here's how I'm going to answer it, here's the methodology I need, here's my context for doing that. Oh, by the way, I'm doing this in a high school, therefore I need to fill out an IRB form, whatever the heck that is, it's in here. I need to submit all of that before the end of the semester to your research advisor. So for example, Allison, if I'm your advisor, you'd be sending that to me. Okay? That is just so that we know your project is doable and good to go. The IRB process takes a while. If you don't realize that, talk to Chester if you know who he is. He'll tell you, oh my gosh, it takes forever to get it approved if you involve human subjects. Sometimes it can take forever if you've got videos and interviews and minors. It takes a while. So that's why we want you to do it in May, so that you're ready to go next year. Okay? Outlines and guidelines for that submission of that research prospectus is in here. Questions, ask your advisor. Okay? In some cases, your project might be worth pursuing funding. So if your project requires, more than sort of the token $100 for gas and things like that, and might require funding, we want to support you in finding the funding you need to do that. I've got one of my advisees is putting in a venture grant because she wants to do research about the education system in another country and do a comparative analysis. So it's a perfect venture grant kind of proposal. So think about those things too and work with your advisor as well. I feel like I'm missing something, Chris. Can you think of anything I just missed?
Well,
with
I'd
that?
say those of you that are not necessarily juniors yet, as you take your ed courses, be thinking about what questions haven't been answered. Because that's then what you can do or think about for your 490. So as you go through your ed courses, be thinking, am I interested in this and wanting to do something more in this area? And then that's hopefully a jumping off place for you to think about your own research. It's not something you think about Block 6 your junior year when you have to submit this proposal. So this is totally relevant for everybody in the room, even if you're a freshman.
And just to, that was actually one of the reasons that we thought the 2-block research methods would be a better vehicle, because it really didn't give us a chance to dive deeper into that conversation. Tina's going to do a little bit of it in Block 7, but if we had that second block in research methods, now we actually could be really framing out the scope of that research that you might want to do. Okay, Terry?
To go along with what Chris was saying, also, I really want to encourage those of you who have taken or are in the process of 100 and 110, read over your journal entries. See what matters to you. What's kind of bubbling up from what you notice in a school. And you may find a theme that sort of runs through your journal, and that might evolve into a topic for a thesis.
Good point. Okay, according to my agenda, I've covered everything. So the last thing on it for myself is, do you have any more questions? Any questions about anything? You may be more comfortable for you to just meet us individually. Talk to Deb if you're interested in teacher licensure and want to know more about it, or talk to Terry about Ed 100, 120. Chris and Tina obviously can help answer questions about anything with the major and so forth. So feel free to stick around. Are we out of food? Did we clean the house pretty well? Cookies
There's
left?
a little bit of eggplant parmesan, and there are cookies.
And cookies. Okay, so
Someone needs to eat that then.
thank you again for coming. But yeah, you have a question real quick?
What should we talk to the minor about? I'm a minor.
Minor, yeah.
Who
So
would I talk to about that?
you can stick around and talk to me if you want, but all I'm going to really say is watch for that email that's going to come out next block about the minor. But if you have a specific question now, I'm happy to answer it. We can do that.
If I were to go online and look up minor requirements,
It would be changing.
okay.
Yeah.
That's why I said
So
just
after this,
And let me just give you a brief, those of you that are the change that we might make that we're contemplating is instead of requiring 2 full units of practicum, dropping that down to 1 full unit of practicum and having another unit be someplace else. We don't know where that is exactly. If you're already declared as a minor, we'll help you continue on the path that you're on. You don't have to change to this new way, but the new way might be easier for your schedule. So, anyway, that's, yeah, pay attention to the email that comes out to see which way is more advantageous.
Thank you. Okay, thanks everyone. Have a good, wonderful, sunny afternoon.
I know.